y'all know what time it is? Do y'all really know what time it is? It's time to grab your popcorn, grab your best beverage. It's time to relax your ears. Wrestling season has returned, baby.
Ooh, yeah.
That's right. And it's time for your main event. Coming down the aisle, we have the one, Bobby Wrestles. And he is accompanied by the beautiful Mia Moore. This is the main event. Welcome to the All About Wrestling podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's Sunday, December 11th, and we have a special show for you. We are back with the briefing. We have a special guest. We have a couple topics. We're going to talk about Sasha Banks. What is the deal? Where is she? Where is she going? Will she be a free agent in January? We're also talking about Ring of Honor coming to TV. It's a subscription service, $10 a month. And I will introduce our special guest. But first, I have to introduce my beautiful co-host, the one and only Mia Moore. Mia Moore.
Hi.
How are you?
It's been a long time.
It has.
It's good to be back.
How you feeling today?
I feel good. I feel, I'm not going to feel energized, so I'm not going to lie about that. I feel kind of tired. I'm not going to lie. This daylight savings time is like definitely half my hours all messed up, and I feel like an old woman.
Oh, man. Don't get old too fast.
I'm just saying, like, I wonder if they're really going to stop doing daylight savings time at some point.
I don't know. That's been the talk of the town, lately. So I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they'll do it for you, Mia Moore.
Yeah, imagine that one.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest today. This guy really does need an introduction because he is successful and very esteemed, and we're honored to have him today. We have award-winning writer, author, educator, speaker, and recording artist. He's known as the author of 4 books, Public Enemy #1, Discover Your Gold Mine, and co-author of Dolomite, the story of Rudy Ray Moore and the newly released Pro Wrestling's Black World Champions, both with his late brother, Julian. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for David L. Shabazz. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Bobby. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're honored to have you. My co-host and I, we're extremely excited. First, I want to ask you, what drew you to actually wanting to write and be an author?
Oh, wow. My writing started really when I was a young kid at 5 years old. I used to enjoy reading the newspapers, and I know that's like an old concept to people these days, but there used to be a daily newspaper. I enjoyed the daily newspaper, and so I would read it, and I would actually create my own newspaper. I would write my own articles. I'd draw my own little stick pictures. I wasn't an artist in that sense, but I would put it together, and I would give it to my mom. And my mom would like give me like a nickel, a dime, or something like that for, so she gave me that encouragement to want to be a writer. And my start was wanting to be a newspaper writer.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So you, from a young age, it's fair to say that you had a creative mind, which is...
I like to think so.
So you teach, correct?
Yes.
And from what I understand, you're in Kentucky. It's pretty interesting because we actually have affiliates that are in Kentucky. We have the Nice Guy Andy podcast, and they're a podcast about wrestling as well. And in fact, one of our moderators, he's actually in the chat, Fandito, he's excited about you being on our show as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, wonderful. I'm glad to be here. I actually teach journalism at Kentucky State University. My my career as a reporter, I've always loved education. And so when I was a reporter in Winston-Salem, I went to Wake Forest University and got a master's degree and a second master's degree actually in education. And I started teaching at the community college there in 2002, and I got the job at Kentucky State in 2003, and I've been teaching journalism here ever since.
That's great. That's great. So, what are your thoughts, Miamor? You have the Dolomite book, correct?
I do. I started to look at it. I didn't get the chance to actually read it, but then when I seen the book, I looked over at Bobby and I was like, "Are you gonna read this?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Did you skim through the book a little bit?" And he was like, he was like, no, like I was like, okay, well, you should read it. And Bobby doesn't read things like this. And it like recapped my mind back to when I was like 13 years old.
Wow.
Because I know how horrible that sounds out loud, right? But I'm only saying that because one of my girlfriends had gave me a book. It was called The Coldest Winter Ever, and this kind of gave me those type of vibes. And I was like, oh, this is like an erotic novel or something. Like, what the hell is this? But I was so curious to read this, and I have to say honestly, like, it had to take some courage to actually write this book because you're wondering what people are going to think, like how they're going to respond to it, like what type of reviews you're going to get. So what were your thoughts when you actually published this book?
Oh, first, and thank you, Mia. I'm certainly glad to be here with you as well. Um, you are exactly right. I mean, at that time in 1996, that's 1996 when we actually published it. We started working on that book around the early 90s, probably 92 or 93, something like that. And it sort of grew out of my master's thesis. My master's thesis was on the group Public Enemy. I was looking at their music videos, and it was actually quite interesting. There was a difference between black audiences and white audiences, the perceptions that they saw from looking at Public Enemy music videos. The black audiences saw, yeah, this is fight the power and standing up for our rights, and white audiences saw this is a violent mob that's being destructive. And so it kind of grew out of my research for my master's thesis, ran into Dolomite, and strange story. My brother Julian was at a in South Carolina at the time, and Dolomite, his name Rudy Ray Moore, he and LaWanda Page, who was Aunt Esther from Sanford and Son, they did a concert in Lawrence, South Carolina, which is the county seat of where I'm from Clinton, South Carolina. The county seat is Lawrence. And they have never done a concert there before and hadn't done one since. It just happened to be that concert. He went to it and he met Rudy at the at that concert. After he said he was at the table signing autographs and selling his tapes and everything. And he said, yeah, my brother and I would like to do we really like to do a book on you. My brother's he's a newspaper reporter, and he can do this article on you. I'm totally in Winston-Salem. My brother's in South Carolina using me. He's like, he can do the story on you. And so Rudy was like, yeah, I don't know if he was thinking, yeah, okay, I'll just give this kid a chance or whatever. But he gave my brother his number. My brother passed it on to me. Certainly, I called him, did an interview, and published it in the paper. And from that point on, I guess that was enough proof for him to allow us to do that biography on him.
That's awesome. That's cool because in 2019, Netflix did the movie, and they used Eddie Murphy.
Yes.
And of course, it was the subject of a major Golden Globe. How does that feel to actually publish a book and then see it?
It's like Vindication. To really, and I was giving a lot of background, but that I sort of sidestepped Mia Moore's question. At that time, the book was taboo. Nobody really wanted to touch it. It sold maybe in 1996. It sold maybe 100 copies at the most. But most people saw this and they were like, "What are we going to do with this? This is filthy. It's vulgar," and not looking at the literary elements of it. All they saw was the curse word, so they thought that everything was vulgar. And that book basically stayed dormant until 2019. The great Eddie Murphy decides to do a movie on Dolomite on that period of his life. And then, it was just like we felt vindicated.
That's awesome. I couldn't imagine what that would feel like. But it goes to show, in my opinion, it's testament that what you're doing is the right thing at the right time. And to have, Eddie Murphy of all people, that's a really big accomplishment.
Yes, definitely. It was, and I don't think it would have gotten the praise or the notoriety, the book I'm talking about, if Eddie had not done that, because he put everything in a totally different context, and then everybody was able to see. And the movie was actually true, because I had a couple of reporters call me, and the largest one was from USA Today, because my brother and I were the only people who had a biography on Dolomite. So wow. He wanted to know if this story was true, if this film was actually true. And yes, it was.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I think it's kind of crazy how until 2019, like, you didn't really see no movement in the book. Like, it's crazy to me, like, how times, like you said, it was so taboo to write something like this. And it was. That's why I say it definitely had to take a lot of courage for you to be like, okay, this is finally happening.
Yeah, I mean, we really felt vindicated, because, at first it was like, nobody wanted to touch that at all. I'm like, why are you writing this? And like, you want to hurt your career? I'm like, well, have you all studied literature? Have you all studied Henry Louis Gates? Have you read his book, The Signifying Monkey, which was one of the popular toasts that Dolomite used to do? It's like all they saw was the comedic aspects of it and the cuss words, and not focusing on this came out of Black literature. It's almost like slave novels in a sense. I mean, because that's the way that they communicated and talked at that time, and it wasn't something that was meant to be vulgar. Toasts were something that could either build a person up or tear a person down.
Very true.
And all that's Black literature, and I think now that it took Eddie Murphy's movie for people to see what Dolomite was doing was actually Black literature.
Very true. Folks, if you're just joining us now, we are in motion with David L. Shabazz, notable author, award-winning writer, and we're talking about Black wrestling champions. We just got done talking about Dolomite, and as you can see here, the link is in the description, folks, for this book. All right, awesome book. I've read it. I like how it goes into detail about how wrestling Black wrestling started in Africa and Egypt. And then it's not just champions, there's also famous Black wrestlers as well. So you got to check this book out. So this is what edition of this book is it? Because you did mention that there was an original version and you actually updated it.
Yes, there were. This is the second edition of the book. The first edition my brother put out in 2009. It was a small. It was small, saddle stitched booklet, if you will, 33 pages long. And it grew out of an article that he wrote for one of the wrestling magazines at the time. I want to say Kayfabe. One of those magazines asked him to write about the wrestling champions, the Black wrestling champions. And so he wrote an article, and he decided to expand that article into a publication, and he put it out in 2009. That 2009 publication had 12 uh, wrestlers of African descent who had won the world heavyweight title. And when my brother passed in June of 2020, going through his things, I actually discovered that book, and I decided that, still trying to honor my brother's life, I thought it'd be a good thing to do to update that book, because there are actually more people, a few more wrestlers of African descent who have held the world title. So I thought, yeah, that'd be a good way of honoring my brother, is to update his book, since there are a few more. There are actually 21 people now. The original book had 12, and there are 21 in this one. And I expanded this, and that is why my brother's name is on this book, and it's still, we're sort of like co-authors, because all I did was add to his original.
Correct. Mia Moore, did you like this book, right? She likes the picture of the Rock.
Oh
I'm
my
just gonna
God!
go ahead
Why
and
are
say
you speaking for me tonight? Like, what's your deal? What is this guy? This guy, guys, he's hating on the Rock
I am not.
on live channel. Come on, don't do that.
So, Mr. Shabazz, you, so journalism. What drew you to journalism? Because I think, in my mind, I really think that at some point in time, with everyone's lives and the things that we see, we've all considered wanting to be a journalist, and that's just my opinion. I've thought of it. I've considered it. We're kind of sort of journalists. But what drew you to journalism?
That's a really interesting question, because I've always been a writer, and my first introduction to writing was seeing those newspapers, and so I always wanted to be a newspaper reporter. And I think so that's the initial draw for me. And after being a journalist in college, in particular, writing stories, you had power. We could make a difference. I mean, there were policies that were actually questioned and changed at my university. It was the first place where we were actually allowed to. I could see the power that journalists had to make change, and even on a smaller scale. Um, like I was saying about toast, can it make people look good or make people look bad? Feature stories. The feature story could make people, you could humanize certain people, and when they really enjoyed the story that you wrote about them, anytime you get that positive feedback from what you do, it makes you want to continue. And I think that's what I saw the ability to highlight people and let people really see who they were as a person and appreciate them, and also to be able to make changes in politics.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what we do, we've done it twice. This will be the second time we're doing it. Mia Moore and I, we sat down and we thought of a creative way to honor and reward our guests. So what we did, we have a monthly surprise wheel for December. So what we did was we included your name in the prize wheel. I'm going to see if I can get it here. No. Bam. So we have you in our prize wheel for December. So you have a chance to win. Folks, if you're just joining us, we're here with David Shabazz. And this is our prize wheel for December. And all you have to do is go to allaboutwrestling.net. So the prizes are, there's like multiple items in a mystery box that if you win, it gets shipped to you. So good luck.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for adding me to the list.
Absolutely. So I do have wrestling topics that I do want to discuss. But before we do that, I do want to go to the chat. Mr. Spades is in the chat. And to you, he wanted to wish his condolences to you for your brother's passing. And he says that's amazing that you're keeping his legacy going. Fandito, he says that he's definitely got to pick up your book to read soon. It seems very interesting and great movie as well. So those are some comments that we have. But I do, since we have everyone here, I do want to get your comments on, especially you, Mia Moore, the Sasha Banks situation. So Sasha Banks, recently, there's been a lot of speculation as to her whereabouts, her decision in terms of actually renewing her contract with WWE. Allegedly, in January, her contract is done, over. And things are pointing to her potentially going to AEW. I put a poll up days ago on Instagram, and she's booked for Wrestle Kingdom, New Japan Pro Wrestling. She also trademarked several different names, apart from Sasha Banks. So first, Mia Moore, like, what do you think's going on? Do you think she's going to go to AEW? There's talks of her potentially being Soraya's mystery tag team partner on Dynamite in January. What do you think?
I think if that happens, that's going to be crazy. And I honestly think she's definitely going to give Saraya a run for her money, because not only is she just getting back in the game, but she's going to have to prove herself.
Well,
You know what I mean?
well, if she does go, they're going to team. They're going to team together. So
Well, I understand they're going to team together, but I'm saying, like, maybe she's going to give her that extra push that she needs, because we really haven't seen much from her. So
okay,
I want to see her more, basically. Like, I want to see her. To have somebody motivate her, I think that'll be great. But Sasha Banks, that's going to be lit. It's crazy. Like, it's so strange just to see, like, different wrestlers go to different companies. You know what I mean? Did we hear anything back from CM Punk yet?
we did not. From what I understand, he's done. He's done. I think he's taken a seat from wrestling for a while. But Mr. Shabazz, are you a Sasha Banks fan, and are you interested in seeing her come back?
I am, and yes, I would love to see Sasha return. I kind of think she is returning, because I mean it was sort of suspect to see her on this. I think the show was called Barmageddon or something like that. It was advertised on the USA Network during the wrestling show. I'm like, okay, well, why would they? You know, they didn't say WWE. They didn't mention her at all, but they showed her on that.
Right.
And I thought that was quite interesting, knowing the kind of power that Vince McMahon, I guess Vince may not be in power anymore, but the kind of power he used to wield, he would stop something like that.
Right. I agree. And yeah, like you mentioned, the fact that they didn't even mention her, but she's still on USA programming, which is heavily associated with WWE. They did mention Nikki Bella, who I think was one of the hosts. So it's very interesting, and it's almost like nobody wants to talk about it. Like nobody.
Of course they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Why would they talk about it? Like,
nobody's clearly saying anything about that.
that's crazy.
So, all right. So moving along. Hold on. We got a comment here. Dangerous Jobbers Podcast. He says, Sasha is in Japan. Sasha in Japan would be interesting to see a name of her status go over there. Mr. Spade says Vince's BS is about to gift AEW their first elite signing, pun intended, in a very long time. Wow.
Well, I would have to agree there. I think seeing Sasha Banks in Japan, yeah, I would like to see that. Just because, I mean, she's a a famous woman. Like WWE, seeing her, we're seeing everybody going to AEW. Clearly AEW, has something going on over there, right? That everybody wants to go there, whatever the case may be. But new Pro Japan Wrestling, New Japan Wrestling Pro, whatever. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I would love to see her go there, just because I don't really watch that much, and maybe it might, spike my curiosity just to say, hey, let me see what she's doing over there. You know what I mean? And it might, just send fans that way. I would love to see that happen.
Okay, all right. Ring of Honor is coming to TV. And our other topic, $10 a month TV subscription service. All right, and I guess we'll do a rapid fire answer. Mr. Shabazz, will you be watching Ring of Honor for $10 a month?
No. I used to watch Ring of Honor for free. Before that, I guess they went bankrupt and closed, and AEW bought them. I do think it's a good idea to have them on their own separate show away from the AEW, not being a part of that show.
Go.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think I'll be watching that, considering that I'm paying $10 for Peacock just to watch the WWE pay-per-views.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think that price, because you can watch WWE pay-per-views for $5. So I think that's a bit expensive. Not taking anything away from Ring of Honor, but I mean, you have to be fair, and you have to, as wrestling fans, we kind of place value on things that they present to us. So
yeah, unless they have more marketable people like a Sasha Banks. I mean, if they can, well, she wouldn't go there, but I don't think Ring of Honor has the talent at this point to charge that much.
I agree with you. Totally agree with you. So, folks, if you're just joining us, we're here with David L. Shabazz, award-winning author. We have his book. We have a couple of his books. Mainly, we're discussing Pro Wrestling's Black World Champions. There's a link in our description for this episode. Make sure you click on that link and you order this book. Very great book. I was blown away by the information here. And there's a better picture of The Rock.
There's The Rock again.
The information, as a wrestling fan, I love reading about or discovering information that I didn't have to add to more, the information that I do have, especially doing a podcast. This book is valuable. It's very, very valuable to us. So thank you for this copy. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you again for having me. I really think that this is, when you think about the sport of professional wrestling and how long it's been around, and there are only 21 people of African descent who held the world title. It says that there's still those 21 need to be celebrated and highlighted, but it shows that there's certainly room for growth, and especially among the female wrestlers. Someone like a Sasha Banks can certainly rejuvenate the interest in the females in the sport and could hold the world title. When my brother first wrote this book in the first edition in 2009, there were only 3 women, Jackie Moore, Jazz, and Awesome Kong. And mine only has the addition of Nyla Rose. So, only one more person.
Oh my gosh.
There needs to be more females and certainly more African-American females given the opportunity to compete for the world title.
Definitely.
And Sasha Banks has that. She has that popularity. I mean, especially with, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So I saw her in The Mandalorian, and I know there are lots of people who like that show as well. I mean, so she's getting out there, and I really think she's a marketable commodity. So WWE should try to hold on to her.
Oh man, and we all knew how much Vince loved her. So sorry guys, I have a guest here that's not on camera. Yeah, that's the sound effects in the background.
Yeah, I gotta check The Mandalorian out. I heard good reviews. I haven't seen it.
You know what I love to see though? I love to see like wrestlers branch off into a different career, or just things that they inspire to do. So, hopefully on our next show we can have a new segment for myself where I can kind of like bring that a little bit more to light. How wrestlers are doing something after their wrestling career and spreading positivity.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
But I want to touch base on you. You know, you said there are very few African American wrestlers who held on to the world champion title. And that's why when Kofi Kingston became world champion, it was such a huge deal because not only is he an African American man, but he is a I don't want to like be like, you know, disrespectful, but he's like a lightweight. Like, you know, he's tiny. So for him to come up against men who, you know, worked just as hard as he did, who are huge, you know, I think it's a big deal. It's a huge deal, and I think it definitely should be known and celebrated.
Yeah, I think it speaks to his certainly the popularity that he had at the time. As part well, the entire New Day at that time, they all were a popular group. But yeah, that certainly speaks to Kofi's the popularity, and I'm a little I'm very disappointed with him not being at the um, main event status anymore. I think that once you reach that level, he still should be in the conversation and still be competing for the title. I mean, Kofi's not even in consideration for the title.
We don't
He
even
held
see
the
him.
championship.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, we don't even see him anymore. And I think that's where WWE, you know, is wrong when they come to certain things. Just because, you know, they have all these famous, you know, famous wrestlers who are capable of giving us a good match, and they're hiding behind curtains. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was terrible. We all seen it and we all felt it. And it continues to happen. But, you know, as wrestling fans, we have the biggest voice. So all you wrestling fans out there, please know that we determine what we want to see, you know?
Hashtag be heard.
Be heard. So, Mr. Shabazz, how is life in the South?
Growing up in the South, it was kind of tough, but it wasn't really. You know, when you grow up there, you learn how to navigate certain things. I certainly saw racial discrimination growing up, even in the 1970s, which some people probably would not imagine.
Right.
I saw that. But you know, when you kind of grow up around it, you learn how. I'm not making excuses for it and saying it's right, but you learn how to navigate and how to successfully maneuver, which is very important because people will try to set you up, and you know, it's almost like in school where a person can sneak up behind you and hit you. And when you go to hit them back, the teacher looks up and sees you hitting them back, but don't see that person and what they did to start everything with you.
Right.
And, you know, so you learn that people are using these tactics, and, you know, your skin gets a little tougher. And when your skin gets a little tougher, you can take a lot more and just navigate better. But wrestling was always a part of my growth as well, coming from the South. Um, Georgia Championship Wrestling and Mid Atlantic Wrestling were the two that I grew up with the most. We did see WWF, as it was called at that time. We did see that, but it certainly wasn't as popular as Georgia Championship Wrestling, which later became World Championship Wrestling.
Right, right. So you witnessed the territories before everything became monopolized.
Yes, yes.
And that's great because we're sharing generations. If you look behind me, my earliest memory from wrestling, this is generation of wrestling that got me when I was little. I guess that's the beginning of the monopolization, pretty much. So do you have any upcoming projects that you would like to share or talk about?
Well, I am going to work on another book. I'm thinking of expanding. Well, I may either expand this one into a third edition, or maybe I'll keep it like this and just write a separate one on the that would include tag team champions as well. Uh, I don't want to get into some of the lesser belts. If I could possibly do that, that would be something that my brother's signature book, Black Stars of Professional Wrestling, he basically listed every person of African descent, regardless of whether they held a belt or not. I mean, even people like Rocky King, who were known for being a jobber. I mean, he had an SD Jones, you know, those guys who were jobbers. He had all of them in there as well. And I probably won't go that far with it, but I do think there's some other. I may want to recognize some of the tag team champions as well. Think about the Doom, you know, Ron Simmons and his partner Butch Reed at the time, and you know they were great. There was some great tag. Of course, The Rock's father, Rocky Johnson, and the Black Superman, Tony Atlas. You know, there was some great tag team champions, and I may work on that too. Harlem Heat, absolutely. Booker T and Stevie Ray, and I was actually on the show with on the podcast with Stevie Ray last month.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean he's one of those guys that I really have great respect for.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I do want to say thank you for coming on the show. Mi amor, do you have anything left to ask Mr. Shabazz?
Mr. Shabazz, you will be getting a review from me after I read this book, Dolomite.
Okay. I was going to ask which one.
I'm so curious to read it because I'm not going to lie, it looks mad funny. Like, so I'm looking forward to reading it. And I also want to read the other one as well. So once I'm done reading these, it'll probably take me, you know, within the week. I'll definitely get my reviews back to you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, it is such a pleasure having you on the show. And please, please come back. And once you are done writing your other book, invite us to your signing. We definitely would love to go and support you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. I would love to come back. And yes, if I have a book signing anywhere, I'll definitely invite you all to that.
Yes, it'll give us a reason to go out.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, folks. So this has been another fun-filled episode of The Briefing with a great guest and author David L. Shabazz. Make sure you go into our description, click that link, and order a book. And we'll be talking about this book for weeks to come. Also, be advised, this upcoming Saturday, we're going to be at Icons of Wrestling in Philadelphia. So come check us out. We'll have a table set up. And folks, we will see you next week.